Okay, so um, I think just about everyone knows the story of David and Goliath, right?
Yeah, it's one of those classic underdog stories.
But what if I told you that pretty much everything you think you know about it uh, is wrong?
Interesting.
Yeah, so today we're going to be diving into Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath.
Oh, cool.
And we're going to be exploring the advantages of being the underdog and hopefully learning some new strategies that we can maybe use ourselves.
I love that book. It's all about challenging those assumptions.
Exactly. And like I said, most people think they know this story, but when you really start like digging into the details, it really challenges your perspective on, what it means to be powerful and what true advantage really looks like.
Yeah, it definitely makes you rethink things.
For sure. So let's start with this idea of David as this small, weak shepherd boy facing off against this giant, this invincible warrior, Goliath.
Yeah, that's the image everyone has, right?
Yeah, and Gladwell really challenges that image. Like he points out that there's this other layer to the story that most people just miss.
I'm curious, what do you mean by another layer?
Well, Gladwell, he suggests that Goliath might have actually suffered from this condition called acromegaly.
Acromegaly.
Yeah, it's a hormonal disorder that causes excessive growth and could explain Goliath's massive size, but it also would have come with some pretty significant weaknesses.
So maybe Goliath wasn't as invincible as we all think he was.
Exactly. Acromegaly, it often comes with vision problems. Like sufferers can have trouble seeing things clearly,
Oh, interesting.
and it can also make movements slow and clumsy.
So he's this giant, but he can't see well and he's slow.
Yeah, and if you go back and read the biblical account, like it actually mentions that Goliath had to have someone lead him onto the battlefield, and he was carrying all this heavy armor. And there's even this line where he shouts at David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?"
With sticks. That's strange. Why would he say that?
Right. So, like, why would Goliath be so focused on sticks if he had a sword and a spear? Well, Gladwell, he suggests that maybe Goliath's vision was so bad that he couldn't even see that David had a sling.
Wow, that totally changes the picture.
It does. And then, let's talk about the sling for a second.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like much of a weapon compared to, a sword or a spear.
Right. But slings were actually like really powerful and accurate weapons.
Yeah.
A skilled slinger could launch a stone with like incredible force. Like Gladwell compares it to a modern handgun.
Really?
Yeah. So David, he wasn't just this like helpless kid throwing rocks. He was a projectile warrior, like a serious threat.
I never thought of it that way.
And then when you factor in Goliath's potential vision problems, his slow movements and all that heavy armor, he basically becomes like this giant target.
Yeah, I see what you mean. He was vulnerable in ways that no one really considered.
And that's what makes the story so fascinating, right? It challenges our assumptions about strength and power.
For sure. So it's not just about size and strength. It's about strategy and exploiting your opponent's weaknesses.
And Gladwell uses another really cool example of this, Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, yeah, the Arab Revolt during World War One.
Right. So Lawrence was leading this Bedouin army against the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah, and the Ottomans had way more men, more weapons, more resources, everything.
Right. So Lawrence, he knew that he couldn't win a traditional battle against them.
So what did he do?
He embraced a strategy of what's called legs, not arms.
Legs, not arms. I've never heard that before.
It's this idea that comes from this military strategist, Maurice de Saxe, and it's basically the idea that that mobility and speed can be more effective than brute force.
Interesting.
So instead of trying to match the Ottomans in terms of like firepower, Lawrence focused on utilizing his army's agility and knowledge of the terrain.
So he was playing to their strength.
Yeah, exactly. And the Bedouins, they were desert nomads. They were used to traveling long distances, and they knew how to survive in harsh environments.
So the desert, which seemed like a disadvantage, actually became their advantage.
Right, and there's this amazing example of this, the capture of Aqaba.
Oh, yeah, that was a key port city held by the Ottomans.
And Lawrence, instead of attacking from the sea where the Ottomans were expecting him, he led his men on this insane 600-mile trek through the Nifud Desert.
Wow, 600 miles through the desert. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was brutal, but it was also brilliant. They completely outmaneuvered the Ottomans, and they captured Aqaba without without a major fight.
So he used the desert, which most people would see as an obstacle, as a path to victory.
Exactly. He basically redefined the battlefield, and it's a perfect example of um, how the underdog can use their perceived weaknesses to their advantage.
That's such a powerful lesson.
Right. So, like, how often do we get stuck in our conventional ways of thinking? How often do we fail to see the opportunities that are right in front of us?
All the time, I think. We get so focused on what we think we lack that we forget to look at what we already have.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about these stories. They make you question your assumptions and start seeing the world in a whole new way.
For sure. So these are some really fascinating historical examples. But I'm curious, do you think these underdog strategies still work in, like, the modern world?
Gladwell actually uses a pretty cool example of this in Silicon Valley.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it involves a software entrepreneur, VC Vanadiv, and his daughter's basketball team.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
Yeah, we'll get into that in the next part of our dive.
That sounds good.
Okay, so we've got this Silicon Valley guy coaching a basketball team. What's so unusual about that?
Well, a lot of parents, they coach their kids' teams, but remember what we were talking about? It's all about recognizing unconventional advantages.
Right.
So Ranadiv, he didn't like grow up playing basketball or anything, and his team, it was, like you said, full of like little blonde girls who were like way more into marine biology than basketball.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were like going up against these teams with, years of experience, real athletes, total underdog situation. Right?
But how did he turn this group of like marine biologists into a winning team?
Well, he kind of did what Lawrence of Arabia did. He found this secret weapon hiding in plain sight.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What was it?
The full court press.
You mean like aggressively defending the entire court?
For the whole game?
Yep, exactly. And it's, super exhausting. Is one of the reasons most coaches, they don't even bother with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, wouldn't that tire out your own players too?
Definitely. It's risky. You got to have players who can like keep up that intensity.
And I imagine it's not foolproof either, right? Like a good team could probably figure out how to break the press. Oh yeah, for sure. A team with really good ball handlers, they could definitely get around it.
So why did Ranadiv think this was the answer?
Well, he noticed that most teams, no matter how good they were, they pretty much like played the same way. And they left these huge parts of the court completely open. So Ranadi figured, why not take advantage of that?
And the press, that would force the other team to make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Especially if they're not used to that kind of pressure.
Yeah, it creates this like total chaos. And the other team, they're like scrambling, trying to get the ball up the court. And that's when you can steal the ball, force turnovers, easy layups.
So it's almost like evening the playing field.
Exactly.
But didn't you say that most coaches, they avoid this strategy?
Yeah, a lot of coaches, they think it's unsportsmanlike. Like, especially for youth basketball.
So they thought Ranadiv was like breaking some unwritten rule or something?
Pretty much, like they'd get all upset because it disrupted the flow of the game.
It's kind of like Lawrence of Arabia, challenging those traditional ways of doing things.
Yeah, I see that. So even though Ranadiv's team, they weren't like winning championships, they were winning games they probably shouldn't have.
So it was working.
Yeah, they were stealing the ball, forcing turnovers and getting those easy layups.
Did other coaches start copying him after seeing how successful it was?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But most of them, they didn't. They thought it was just a fluke.
Yeah.
Or that it only worked because of, those particular circumstances.
So they just, like, refused to change, even though there was evidence that it worked.
Yeah, it's funny, right, how resistant people can be to change.
Even when it's staring them in the face.
Exactly. But Gladwell, he points out that there are always those people who, like, see things differently.
The people who aren't afraid to break the mold.
Yeah. And he tells this story about Rick Pitino, this basketball coach who was, like, so impressed by a small college team using the full court press that he built his whole coaching philosophy around it.
Wow. So he saw it in action and decided to go all in on it.
Yeah, and he took it like even further. He became like notorious for these these crazy, intense practices,
Hmm.
constant movement, relentless pressure, never giving your opponent a chance to breathe.
Sounds intense.
Oh, it was. And he had this thing called 7-second corrections.
7-second correction.
Yeah, it was his way of like keeping his players, on edge and focused.
What did it involve?
He'd stop practice for like just 7 seconds to give feedback or, make adjustments, and then bam, right back to it.
So even his breaks were intense.
Oh, yeah. And he got amazing results.
So this full court press, it wasn't just some gimmick. It was like a philosophy.
Right. And it takes real commitment to make it work, mentally and physically.
So are you saying we should all like start using full court presses in our everyday lives?
Well, not exactly, but the point is that there are like these unconventional strategies out there that most people they overlook.
The things that play to our strengths, even if those strengths seem like weaknesses at first?
Exactly. But figuring out how to do that's what we'll explore in the next part of our dive.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
All right, so we've heard all these stories about underdogs using these crazy strategies, but how do we actually apply these lessons in our own lives?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Gladwell, he doesn't just want to like entertain us with these stories. He wants us to actually understand how to become the underdog who wins.
Okay, so how do we do that?
It all starts with changing how we think about advantages, Like we get so caught up in what we don't have, what we lack, that we miss the strengths that are right there in front of us.
So we're so busy comparing ourselves to the Goliaths that we forget to look at what makes us like uniquely qualified to win our own battles.
Exactly. Think about Goliath, Everyone thought his size and his armor, they were like his biggest advantages, but in the end, they actually made him slow and inflexible.
And Renediv's team.
Yeah, they didn't have those traditional basketball skills, so they had to find a different way to win, and that actually became their advantage.
So like our weaknesses can actually be advantages. But how do we even start to see things that way?
It starts with really understanding yourself. Look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, but not in the usual way. Don't just like list them out. Think about how they might play out in different situations.
So instead of just saying I'm bad at public speaking, I might say I get nervous speaking in front of groups, so I've learned to be a really good listener.
Yeah, that's perfect. Or maybe someone's always told you you're too sensitive. But what if that sensitivity, what if it actually makes you incredibly empathetic, able to connect with people on a deeper level?
Okay, so it's like we got to reframe those things we see as negatives and look for the potential that's hidden inside them.
Exactly. But it also it goes beyond just ourselves. We have to be willing to like challenge those unwritten rules. Underdogs, they win because they don't play by the rules. They think outside the box.
Like Lawrence of Arabia marching through the desert.
Right.
Or Renedy with his full court press.
Exactly. They looked at the situation and they found a different way to win.
So we got to ask ourselves, what are the rules in this situation? And how can I like bend them, break them to my advantage?
Yeah, it might feel a little uncomfortable, but that discomfort, it can lead to like some amazing breakthroughs.
But there's one thing I still don't quite get. Even when underdogs are successful, like people still resist their methods. Why is that?
It's human nature, right? To stick with what's familiar, even if something else might work better.
Even if we see the evidence.
Right. Change can be pretty scary, even when it's positive.
So this underdog mentality, it's not just about using different strategies. It's about having the resilience to stick with them, even when they're not popular. Are people
It's about seeing possibility where other people just see limits. It's about resourcefulness, creativity, and believing in yourself, believing in your ability to overcome challenges, even when they seem impossible.
So we've talked about David and Goliath. We've talked about Lawrence of Arabia. We've talked about Ranadiv and the full court press. And I think the message is pretty clear. We all have the potential to be the underdog who wins. Yeah. It's about embracing our our unique strengths, challenging the way things have always been done, and never giving up on our goals no matter how big they seem.
Yeah, don't let the Goliaths in your life intimidate you, you know. They might just have weaknesses you haven't even thought of yet, and you have strengths that they might totally underestimate. So go out there and find your own full court press, your own unconventional path to success.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into David and Goliath. We hope you've learned a thing or two about the surprising advantages of being the underdog. And maybe you'll start seeing those giants in your life a little differently.